Bruce. Welcome to this edition of our LHP video blog series called Show Me the Money. Today we're going to discuss how we might each earn more cash through better financial trip planning. This video blog is entitled Cost Control or Beat the Numbers. Now, anyone successfully running their own business understands the critical necessity of controlling their costs. It's imperative, it's painful, basically goes without saying. That said, once costs are cut to the bone, then what? Are we done? Or are there more creative ways that we might be able to boost our bottom line? Well, as usual, with a little bit of creativity applied, there's always a better way to do virtually anything. And in the case of independent trucking, following is going to be a general discussion of one way that LHP thinks bears consideration, at least in some situations. Now, this general commentary that we're going to do tonight will be followed over the coming weeks, probably later this week, with specific, more detailed examples. But for now, here's the wide tread, 8-inch chrome, twin stack, big picture. Now imagine a trip that you've already committed to for 1,230 paid miles. And let's say it's 12:30 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. You're loaded, you're ready to go, your paperwork's in order, you're on your way out of the ship, or now your 14-hour clock started at 7 o'clock this morning. So for today, you're going to be able to log maybe 425, maybe 450 miles in the 8.5 hours that we still have available today. Tomorrow, we're going to have a full 11-hour driving day. We can probably get 600 miles, maybe more, certainly at least 550, assuming some things go wrong. Now, our appointment at the consignee is set. We have to be there between 2:30 p.m. and 5 o'clock on Thursday. So we're not in a hurry. And in any event, the consignee, when we called him, says there is no way that we can get unloaded early. 2:30 is the earliest we're going to get on a dock. So this is going to leave us with about 200, 240, whatever, easy miles to cover on Thursday morning. And as you can see from this scenario, there is no way to eliminate the two 10-hour breaks, one tonight and one tomorrow night, that are built into this trip schedule. And we also cannot get the load off any earlier than 2:30 on Thursday afternoon. So, what can we do with this beast in terms of trip planning for more money? Anything at all? Well, yeah, for starters, let's say that we normally cruise under load at 64 miles an hour at our engine's sweet spot of about 1,250 RPMs. And since we're not in any kind of a hurry on this trip, we got till 2:30 Thursday, we could sleep in tomorrow morning. We could sleep in again Thursday morning, kick back. Or, alternatively, we could consider putting on some tunes we like and just driving a little slower, say 58 miles an hour. Now, if we were to do that, it's going to require roughly 3 hours more driving time. Ugh. Who wants to do that? But if we do that, what's happening to our fuel usage and cost? And would the 3 hours additional driving time be worth anything to our pocketbook? Well, I think it will. Now, let's take a look at how these numbers might work. And realize that we'll do this in a more detailed way in about a week. We'll do a follow-up tutorial actually using the LHP take it or leave it calculator. So you don't need to remember these numbers and all the details or write anything down. Just go with it, and we'll pin it down again next week, okay? So for today, let's just say, is it worth anything to our pocketbook? Yeah, it sure is. And let's show you how that might work. Now the take it or leave it calculator, which of course I've already put this into, although you're not seeing it, shows a net revenue to the truck of 120 bucks in addition to the 40 cents a mile for the 1,230 miles for our driver's salary. So that's going to total pre-tax net of 120 bucks to the truck, 492 to the driver, 612 bucks for the trip, well, if we're driving at 64 miles an hour. Well, what happens at 58 miles an hour? Well, the take it or leave it calculator shows a reduction in total estimated expenses for the trip from $2,649 to $2,551. That's a 3.7% reduction. Yeah. Who cares? 3%, 4%? I don't care about that, right? I ain't driving slower. Well, hold on a minute. Let's keep it going here. The calculator also shows that the total estimated trip income at settlement for this trip is going to be $2,770 bucks. And of course that doesn't change whether we drive at 64 miles an hour or 58 miles an hour. We're getting paid so much per mile. Our fixed and variable expenses for the trip are of course covered at the 64 miles an hour speed, and it leaves a return on investment for the trip at 64 miles an hour of 4.54%. Now, the trick here is to realize that by driving 6 miles per hour slower, you reduced your fuel usage, which of course you knew, which in turn increased our net revenue, which you also knew. But here's a little factoid you might be less aware of. Since all our fixed and variable expenses are already covered at the 64 miles an hour, there is virtually no cost to assess against this 3.7% increase in net. Now this seemingly tiny difference in cost does go entirely to your bottom line net, at least your pre-tax net, and this is the magic that most folks never see and will never understand. And it is like magic to your bottom line. You'll see in a minute. Now, please make a note to self that LHP never considers the driver's salary portion of income as profit. Driver's salary is a labor expense to the truck or the business, depending how you think about it. It is not profit. Now, this sort of LHP thinking requires that you, as an owner-operator, wear two hats. The first hat is for you as the driver-employee guy. The second hat is for you as the owner of the trucking business. Now the first hat wants its driver's salary of, say, 40 cents a mile, and it's happy. But the second hat, the owner hat, that hat wants profit. That is why you're in business in the first place, isn't it? You can get a salary anywhere. So, neglecting the driver portion of this income, 40 cents at 1,230 miles, that's 492 bucks, which of course doesn't change. Just looking at the net that the business earned over and above this salary, we just bumped your trucking business net from 120 bucks for this trip to 218 bucks for this same trip by driving at 58 miles an hour instead of 64. This is an increase to the net bottom line of 81%. Now let me say that again. This is an increase to your net bottom line of 81%. So the 3.7% reduction in cost suddenly became 81% more money in your pocket. Put it another way, your net rate per driving hour just went up from $4.99 per hour to $8.02 per hour, and your net per driven mile just went up from 9 cents a mile to 17 cents a mile. Your trip ROI, return on investment, bumped up from 4.54% to 8.56%. It nearly doubled. Now that is a heck of a raise in salary, profit actually, obtained simply through more thorough trip planning rather than just working harder. How sweet is that? Now, doing this sort of thing every single week that you're out on the road can easily take a trucking business, an owner-operator with one truck earning, say, $55K a year, to $75K a year or more, depending how aggressive you want to get into these numbers. Now, again, how sweet is that? Who doesn't want that? But if you can beat your numbers by 4% a trip, you can increase your earnings by 50%. Please remember that, okay? Now, intuitively, we would expect, or at least I would expect, that adding 3 hours of driving time to the trip, well, won't that reduce our net earnings per driving hour? We're going to drive longer. No, it turns out that isn't the case at all. It turns out the reduction in operating expense by using less fuel is more than sufficient to bump this hourly rate by 61% from $4.99 per driving hour to $8.02 per driving hour. It's a nice unexpected raise. Now, most of us, many of us, would like to think, I certainly like to think, that I can outshift an Ultra Shift Plus or an iShift. But the fact is, I can't do it. Machine's smarter than I am. Many of us also like to think that we can trip plan effectively on a napkin in a restaurant. But the fact is, we can't do it. Making money is never easy. If it was, FMCSA and DOT employees would be doing it, wouldn't they? And they're not. Now, LHP's take it or leave it calculator, or whatever other method that you choose to use to more accurately determine your trip revenue versus trip cost, at least, please, something more accurate than a napkin, will very likely be well worth your effort, can reasonably be expected to fatten your wallet, and hopefully enough to give you a hip problem down the road. Now, I've been a successful cost estimator and a spreadsheet junkie for decades. Certainly more years than I've been a steering wheel holder. And I've learned some things that I can share with you about how these numbers work. Now, LHP can't do this for you, but if anybody watching today is still interested, I can show you a few different ways to creatively beat the numbers and make yourself a little more money. Now, you don't have to use LHP calculators. Of course, I push subscriptions to LHP because I'm the editor of LHP, but you do it any way you want. It doesn't matter, okay? But it does matter that you're working smart and not just hard. The LHP calculators will, in fact, for $9.95 a month, make what can be a fairly complex financial task a little bit easier. I'm just saying. Thanks for tuning in.